Are you normal? If you're wondering if your progress is going too slow or too fast, today is the show for you. So today I'm going to cover the typical results that someone can expect to see when they're following a healthy diet and exercise program. Everything from results in fitness, to results on the scale, to results at the doctor's office. Let's find out where you fall on the range. So at this point, you're probably curious if the results that you're seeing are falling in range or if they're out of the ordinary. And of course, I'm going to preface this by saying everybody is an individual and everyone's results may vary. Of course, you're going to have individualized results, but in my experience as a dietitian for almost 20 years, I have definitely seen the gamut of what people can typically achieve when they start a new diet and exercise program. So I'm going to break that down in terms of weight, fitness changes, and health changes like blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood sugar. So the first big question for many of you doing a new program is, what is normal weight loss? What does that look like? On TV, you see dramatic results, people losing 10 pounds in a week, or maybe you have a friend doing a diet and they're losing 20 pounds in a month. And I'll just flat out say, that's not typical. That is not the norm. Not even for somebody who weighs 400 pounds. Here's a little bit of math. 1 pound of fat contains 3,500 calories. Now, if you wanted to lose 1 pound in a week, you would cut out 500 calories a day to lose the 1 pound. Most people are probably only eating 2,000 calories a day, some people a little bit more, a little bit less. So if you wanted to lose 10 pounds in a week, you would need to cut out 5,000 calories per day. That's not even possible, especially if you're eating 2,000 or less. So why do people end up losing so much? You know, they're showing legitimate scale changes. Well, the answer is they're not really losing body fat. They're actually just seeing a reflection on the scale of changes in hydration status. It's just shifting water. You see evidence of this when people have followed a really, really low carb diet and then suddenly in a couple of weeks, they're down 15 pounds. They did not lose 15 pounds of body fat. And that's what most people are trying to do. They're not trying to just change the scale and see different numbers. They're actually trying to lose the unhealthy weight. And then what happens if you're on a really low carb diet and then you eat a bunch of carbs and you gain 4 pounds in a day? They would have had to eat over 13,000 calories to gain 4 pounds in one day. And nobody does that. So it's just another water fluctuation. And if you're interested in more, I can do another episode on that topic. So let's go back to normal weight loss progress. What's normal? If you have more weight to lose, like say 50 pounds or more, it's definitely realistic to see 2 pounds per week as a pretty typical rate of weight loss. But you might also see 1 pound per week. That's pretty realistic, even if you have 50 pounds to lose or more. And even for some people, a half a pound per week can be typical if they're not making really huge changes in their lifestyle just yet. Maybe they're taking a more gradual approach, but they're not gaining weight anymore and they're not staying the same. So that means it's working. You got to consider the fact that if you, before starting your program, if you were constantly gaining weight and then suddenly you stopped gaining weight, you also created a deficit for yourself. You just haven't seen it show up on the scale as weight loss. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. So another scenario is if you're trying to lose 10 pounds or less and exercise is a new and big part of your program, then you might not see much changes on the scale at all. I mentioned this in the last episode that when I had started doing this one time, I lost 1 pound, but I lost 6 inches. Now, what does that mean? It means that you displaced a lot of the body fat on the scale with muscle. So it's kind of like that saying, muscle replaces fat. You don't really see the shift on the scale, but your body's completely gotten smaller. You're definitely smaller in your clothes size. So sometimes the scale doesn't tell the whole story. The other thing important to remember is that the longer you're on your weight loss journey, other things start to happen, like plateaus. So say it's been 2 to 3 months and you've lost 8 pounds. Well, that might slow down to 1 to 2 pounds per month, unless you start to drop your calories even more. The reason being is that after you lose a bunch of weight, you're a smaller person and you need actually less calories to continue losing weight. That can be a tricky thing to finesse. That's why I usually recommend working with a dietitian if you get to that point of plateaus and struggling to get to the next level. But that's something that eventually is part of your journey, especially if you're losing 100 pounds and you cut back, not that much, and you're losing dramatically, and then suddenly it really slows down. So slowing down of weight loss is a natural adaptation of the body. The longer that you're in a program or the longer that you're following your change in diet habits. That should give you a little bit of window of what is realistic and what is typical of different types of people on a weight loss journey. A lot of it depends on what your intervention is and how much you're creating a deficit, but the other piece to it is also how much you have to lose and how long you've been on your journey. So let's talk about the other changes that can happen. Let's look at fitness. For most people with doing fitness changes, there's about a 2-week window where you really start to see conversion in the body. This is where the stamina really seems to increase and strength increases as well. Let's say if someone's walking 1 mile per day. By the second week, it's not going to really be that difficult anymore. Your body will have adapted to that 1 mile a day. You're doing it on a day-to-day basis, and after 2 weeks, you're pretty well adapted. So are you still burning as many calories doing that walk? Probably not, because your body's adapted to it. It's gotten stronger. So it's burning less calories doing that same mile every single day than it was 2 weeks ago. To continue if creating the calorie deficit is your goal, you might have to ramp up your efforts. Either increase the intensity, like go at a faster pace or go uphill, or go a little bit longer, maybe add on 10 or 15 minutes, or increase the frequency. Maybe you're adding on another timer in the day, another 10-minute walk in the evening. So eventually, kind of the same way the body adapts to weight loss, the body can adapt to fitness. So it is an important part to keep improving and keep challenging yourself. So fitness changes do occur pretty quickly. It's a really great return on investment because especially if you're doing a daily effort. If you're doing a daily effort, then you start to see those changes in 2 weeks' time. If you're someone that's doing a walk 3 times a week, it might take you more of the 3-week mark before you start seeing your efforts become a lot easier and seeing your body adapt and become stronger. So a lot of this also depends on where people were at before they started their program. If they weren't doing any fitness at all, they're going to see a lot of improvements more quickly. If someone was previously really fit and they were only off track for a little while, they might have to get back to that daily fitness in order to see the rapid improvements in their fitness level. If they were doing 2 to 3 times a week, they're not going to get there as quickly. Now let's talk about the big money, the health outcomes. This is the stuff that really matters to you if you're trying to avoid a medication or you're trying to get off medications or your doctor's giving you warnings that you might start a medication. So you're really invested in this because it's really important to optimize your health. So the most common ones that respond to diet really well are cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood sugar. If someone's reducing their sodium and they're really cutting out the processed foods and they're increasing their fruit and vegetable intake substantially, they can see improvements in their blood pressure within the month. Some people are a lot more sensitive to sodium and they can see improvements in their blood pressure within a week or 2. So it can be something that's pretty quick for blood pressure, but it does take a pretty significant intervention. The people that have the best results are really cutting out all the processed food, all sodium, all the excess sodium, and really making an effort to increase fruits and vegetables to like 5, 6, 7 servings per day. That's the amount of potassium that they need to help overcome that. Blood pressure doesn't always respond to just diet. Sometimes people have these genetic weaknesses that make it really hard to control blood pressure, and sometimes medication is necessary for that. But also blood pressure, fortunately, responds well to fitness too. So I think the people that are doing the whole gamut definitely see the improvements more quickly than someone who's just cutting out a salt at the table because they're not really addressing all the other areas. And to hit blood pressure where it counts, you really have to hit all the areas. So getting multiple servings of fruits and vegetables, cutting out processed foods, fast foods, restaurant foods, and increasing exercise as well as your best intervention. Now, as far as blood sugar goes, this can happen almost instantly. This is so quick. Blood sugar responds within minutes after eating, okay? And if you are monitoring blood sugar at home with a blood glucose meter, then you can verify this for yourself. There's also a lab value that your doctor takes called the A1C test, and that's a measure of your blood sugar over a 3-month average. So in order to see accurate measurements of that number to change, you want to have a 3-month period to make sure that your entire diet intervention is reflected in that number. Because if you've only been working on your healthy diet for a week and then you go to get your A1C tested, it's not going to be accurate in showing you what you've done in the past week. It's still going to average in all of those other days because it's a 90-day window test. The best way to find out how your blood sugar is responding is to use a blood sugar meter, and that is something you can check within the hour. And then cholesterol is probably the most stubborn and the most difficult to change. I think it takes several weeks. And which is fine because your doctor normally doesn't recheck cholesterol for 6 months. Sometimes they do a 3-month check if you're really working with them and you're trying to demonstrate that you're going to lower your blood cholesterol with diet. But usually that's a test that's only done once per year, maybe twice per year if you're starting a medication or a big diet intervention. So give yourself the time. It definitely takes weeks to change your cholesterol level, unless you're doing a really huge intervention, which is like going vegetarian or vegan and eating just 80% plant-based and not having any type of processed food or animal foods. And exercise is another factor that helps reduce cholesterol. So there's a lot of other factors that go in some of these health metrics, more than just diet, but diet can be a player. Sometimes things like cholesterol are only about 20% affected by your diet changes. So you can have the most perfect diet in the world, but if you have genetically poor cholesterol, it might not make the difference that your doctor feels like you need to have healthy cholesterol. Like for example, some people are more sensitive to animal fats. Not everybody, but some people are, and they have to really cut those out to see improvements in their cholesterol. Everyone's body changes differently. Sometimes numbers do weird things when you don't expect. I've worked with people that have started changing their diet and then their blood sugar started to go up. And sometimes that has nothing to do with the diet. Sometimes your blood sugar goes up because you have an infection or something else going on. So don't blame the diet necessarily. If you're seeing your changes, be a little bit erratic, but repeated follow-up over time is going to be the key to follow trends. So always follow trends. That's my important takeaway. So I'm hoping you found, what's normal in expecting changes in your progress helpful. If so, give me a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Drop a comment below if you still have some changes that you're waiting to see manifest. And hopefully by dropping that change, we'll just put the energy out there in the universe that it's going to show up for you along your journey. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow when I come back to talk about the benefits of ongoing tracking and determining a good strategy for accountability going forward. Have a great day.